Welcome, and let's get started. So again, there's a variety of skill sets. I have between, I think a 2 and a 10. All right. Somebody says first time OG. So we have a variety of different experiences on today. So I look forward to those of you who are gurus. You've been teaching phonics. You're even familiar with Orton-Gillingham. I look forward to hearing you sharing some of your best go-to strategies. All right. So Orton-Gillingham, all right, OG. Who are they and why is this so amazing? Well, first of all, the pioneers, Orton-Gillingham, all right, they are pioneers in the area of multisensory reading. And Gillingham, her first name is Anna. So we have Dr. Samuel Torrey Orton, and then we have Anna Gillingham. Both of them definitely joined their forces in order to create what it is that we're going to be utilizing this year as an intervention resource. So Dr. Orton, he was a neuropsychiatrist and pathologist, and pretty much he started studying reading failure related to language processing difficulties, i.e. what we often can consider to be dyslexia, all right? It's a processing challenge, right? And so he was the guru in that, studying that. And then we have Anna Gillingham, who was a gifted educator, and she was a psychologist, all right, with a superb mastery in language. And so both of them joined their forces together. She would compile, and she published a lot of instructional materials. And so with both of them working together, they created what we have now as Orton-Gillingham multisensory reading approach. And what does this look, feel, and sound like? So Orton-Gillingham, the multisensory approach, to reading and spelling, it includes, obviously, all the sensories, right? We have visual, auditory, tactile, and kinesthetic learning. And so you'll see these images or we have to be reminded, anything that you do with our scholars, our PLA scholars, we want to ask ourselves, have we used a multisensory approach? So it's not enough for them to say it. Do they have the tactile component or the touch? Do they have the physical movement of their body approach, right? And so every single thing that we utilize to apply, it has to have that multisensory approach. So that's the first step that we want to ask ourselves. In your toolkit and throughout this presentation, there will be certain words that are utilized, vocabulary words. So if you're new to phonics, period, and you're new to Orton-Gillingham, then there's certain vocabulary words that sometimes will be said or that will pop up, certain things like phonemes, graphemes, letters, semantics, syntax, those kind of things. So I was a little rusty, so you might have to kind of brush off some of those vocabulary words. This will be in your toolkit, just quick graphic organizers that will help us to remember some of these words and or their value in teaching phonics. And then the next step is just some of the things that are included. The graphic organizers you see here are some of the things that might help to support the why behind the what, as we look at how Orton-Gillingham has organized their lesson plans and their why behind what they're asking us to do. And so first of all, we're definitely going to see sound association a lot, decoding, encoding, spelling rules, and then syntax morphology. And so we see these things applied, all right? And that's just studies of the structure of words and different things like that. But these graphic organizers are in your toolkit, and they will absolutely help to support some of the things, the why behind what you're being asked to do. And so let's get into the how. So there are 7 features that Orton-Gillingham uses to support our scholars in moving them forward in this process. And they include the following. Multisensory, we know that's number 1. That's weaved in everything that you're going to be asked to do to help the brain. And it's all based on neuroscience. And so Dr. Orton was big on that neuroscience approach and how we can utilize some of the studies that we know about the brain in order to help with memory recall, in order to help our scholars really to move it from the short-term memory to that long-term memory, and to just make sure our scholars are able to to make their thinking visible. And so that often is done through the visual, auditory, kinesthetic modes. And then it's sequential. Every lesson that you see there, it's intentional. And so the concepts are taught in a logical, well-planned sequence. The third, lessons build upon each other. So that's where we have that incremental. The fourth, they're constant and consistent reviewing over already taught information. So it's cumulative, it builds on each other. The next is accommodating the scholar's unique. This is meant to be individualized. And so while we're doing these strategies and using these approaches, make sure that we're documenting which approach works best for each individual scholar, right? We're going to notice that we might have one scholar that the tapping, the padding, the rhyme, the rhythm, the different things that we're doing works best for that scholar, the skywriting, whatever it is we're asking you to do. We want to document what strategies work best for each scholar, because then that way we're empowering that scholar to go back to that strategy. Also, simplifying English by teaching letters and combinations. And so being intentional about that, that's those phonograms. And then 7, teaching exactly what scholars need in a clear, straightforward manner. It's explicit, it's scripted, it tells you exactly what to do, what to say. Okay, and so these are the 7 core features for OG Phonics and their why behind their what. And so now let's look at the materials. And if there is a question, please feel free to use the chat area. If something does come up, if I don't know the answer, I absolutely am confident enough to go and find the person who does to get back with you. All right, so materials and resources, what do we have to utilize? We have a variety of different schools on our Zoom session today. So each school is very different, but regarding the multisensory materials that are highly encouraged are the following. And so we have sand as a resource, and that's for that definitely gives them that tactile and that texture. And so sand is a big one. But put in the chat area, if you don't have sand, what are some other materials and resources you can choose to utilize that gives them that tactile and that sensory, that level of sensory? So whatever, we have salt. Oh, I didn't think about salt. Yes. Okay. So sand, salt. We have shaving cream. Wonderful. Oh, that's a popular one, shaving cream. We have gel. So I guess some kind of hair gel. Awesome. Awesome. All right. Someone said rice. All right. I didn't think of rice. Someone told me rice. Pudding. Whoa, I can see. I can see tons of them eating the pudding. All right. Jello. I did not think about Jello. Okay, keep them coming. Keep the ideas coming. So we have sand and we have all of the things in the chat area that are options for us. We also have a blending board. We'll see this in action and the why behind the importance of the blending board. Ooh, Play-Doh, plastic canvas, needlepoint, absolutely. All right. Some other resources as well besides our blending board and our sandbox include, and I love that you said the needlepoint, the plastic canvas with washable paint, absolutely. These are some other multisensory materials that are powerful to have in your toolkit in the classroom, a multisensory screen. And so you're absolutely right. Some teachers use that sewing or that crochet screen. As long as it has those ridges, it's very powerful for our scholars. Then we have our graphene cards, and then we have wall cards. Now, these specific resources we can get, and they're free and they're printable on the website. And so the wall cards, we know that helps our scholars to be able to not only see the letter, but also to associate the sound and a real world item or material that they can connect it in context. And our grapheme cards, it's about them seeing, hearing, and saying those sounds. And so where do we get these free resources and or materials? I just want to make sure we're familiar. Our website that we're encouraged to go to is the M.A. Rooney Foundation. And I'm going to put that in the chat area just to make sure we have it, but this is also will be in your toolkit that you will receive toward the end of the session. So the M.A. Rooney Foundation, they are, I want to say they're based out of Indiana, I believe, but I do know that Indiana, at least, they are a part of the Indiana Department of Education. They're approved dyslexia training vendor. Okay, so they provide for us some free lessons and free resources. And so you can choose to scan this with your phone, but I'm going to take you on a little mini, just a visual to make sure you know where the two most powerful and important resources are located on the website. So this is what the website looks like when you log on. And when you scroll down, the first place I want you to, you would go to is to the printable card deck. This is where you can access the grapheme card decks and the wall cards and a host of other cards as well. There's blank decks for us to create our own if we choose, ABC deck strips. So really all of your resources are here. So for those of you that have, you received it and you have it in your inventory, you can, if something goes missing, lost, damaged, this is where you can go on the website to print them out and to replace them. The next area on the website that's powerful, I feel like I'm delayed. I'm going to turn my camera off for a bit. Okay, the next area is the lesson plan. All right, so when you scroll down on the website, really the lesson plans come up before you see the cards. And so for the sake of our session today, we're going to break down a kindergarten lesson plan. And so when you click on lesson plan for your specific grade level, you'll be able to find, it'll open up a Dropbox. That Dropbox is sequenced into different folders: the scope and sequence, weekly overview, daily lesson plans, consolidated lesson plans, handwriting. So there's a lot of resources here. And when you click on daily lesson plans, it will open up a sequence of lessons. Now, the great thing about the lesson plans is they're intentional. They are expected to kind of just follow them in sequence. And each lesson is expected to be able to be utilized during your phonics block. Now, of course, your master schedules are what they are. So you guys would have to kind of look to see the timing when you look at every chunk and how much time that you're given for that. You guys, I'm sure, will be able to make those adjustments. But the great thing about the lesson plans is every section is timed out. And so for the sake of our session today, we're going to use lesson 106. All right, each lesson plan is broken down into 6 parts. And so we're going to go through each of these 6 parts today, and we're going to look at different strategies we can use to help our scholars strengthen these areas. And so the first is our visual and tactile drills. Then we're going to move to blending drills, fluency, auditory drills, memory words, and then dictation. So most of the lesson plans follow this sequence. And we'll start with our visual drills. And so here we have a teacher who's using the grapheme cards. You'll notice that scholars, they look, they see, they say the sounds. There's times where they say the letter, etc. And so let's go ahead and just pay attention to what this teacher is doing during this visual and tactile part of the lesson. Well, these visual drills, the teacher is going to show the scholars the phoneme sound card, and they've already learned these. And so just quick drills, because scholars should already have this background knowledge. And scholars are going to say the letter or the key word and the sound that the card is showing. After the scholars pretty much have learned it or they've been introduced to it, then they're going to learn to create some new sounds. And typically, the teacher is kind of adding on to what they know. All right, so this is an example of just the teacher in the process of showing this. Okay, just a short clip. And just again, how the teacher's using those graphing cards for a recall for the scholars. You can see that they're confident. They already know the sound. So it's quick. The drill is meant to be quick. It's only about 3 minutes in your lesson plan to really give them those quick drills for them to see it, to say it, and you'll notice that the cards also include on the grapheme cards, like they said, A as an E says, and then they give that sound when there's that consonant in between. And so that might be something new, that might be something unique, but you'll notice that. And so scholars are explicitly know different rules and how our letters, their sounds can change when in context. All right, so that's just a short example of visual drills. And now we'll go to just a short example of tactile drills. And again, you all have we have very experienced educators on today. So the tactile drills, this is just an example. If you do choose to use sand or rice or, or salt, those kind of things, and or the shaving cream, just an example.
The sound is G. Jesus. The sound is shra. Underline left to right. The sound is D. The sound is A. You know 2 ways to say this sound. The sound is E. E says E. E magic E says E.
All right, I'm going to pause it there. We have some examples in this video, but we have some non-examples. So did anyone's ears kind of ring when we heard some of the modeling with the sounds? So we do have to be careful. The example, like for example, I like this E, and then they said the sound for E, but then they said E, it's magic E says, and they were silent. So that's just an example of that explicit teaching of when we have a magic E situation, and we'll definitely go over what that means or what's explicit in the Orton-Gillingham Phonics. The scholars know those rules. They know when there's a magic E situation, it's silent. However, we know the power of us modeling. Was there anyone that when they were hearing how the teacher was modeling, there were some non-examples? Anyone want to turn their mic on? Anything that you noticed that we kind of want to stay away from?
The at the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I definitely had, thank you. Yes, thank you. I just wanted to thank you for putting that in the chat area, and thank you for coming on microphone. We want to be very careful about that, those us we're hearing, the duh, so we want to be mindful of that. But other than that, we're seeing how they're using the tactile, they're using that sand, the rice, the salt, the jello, the pudding, the Play-Doh, whatever we choose to use, and how our scholars are they're having to press it down. And there is neurological research that shows it really supports our scholars' recall and that information sticking. So the tactile and the visual drills, they're super short. It's only about 5 minutes, okay? And so it's just enough to get them, they see it, they say it, they hear it, and they get that tactile movement. So we saw in all of these videos or all of these examples, it has to be that multisensory. So they're saying it, right? And they're moving their bodies with it. They're visually seeing it once they write it, etc. So just remembering that piece. So this is the 5-minute part of our lesson plan. Our next sequence is the blending drills. Here this is where the blending board comes, or whatever we use as a blending board. And so this is where we use this. And the purpose of this is so that they can connect between the phoneme and words, and it allows our scholars to see relationships with word families. And so we're going to see a little bit of that today. This is the same teacher, so we're seeing some of those pronunciation challenges as well, but that's okay. The goal is to kind of watch how scholars are able to utilize what they've learned in a new way.
Magic games makes the I say I.
And again, here we just saw a little snip, but it's again, the scholars are able to apply that magic E rule, and knowing that that vowel sound, it changes, the sound changes because of the magic E rule. So just being explicit with that. And so the blending drills is really intended for our scholars to really be able to make connections and relationships with words and the word families and those explicit rules that we're going to learn more about. And making sure we're teaching them. So the blending drills are just 3 minutes. You'll notice that on the lesson plan, you'll see this first column here with some examples of those letters, what the middle column would, what those letters would look like. And then the third column, what those letters would probably be as well. And so either way, it just kind of gives us the blending. It says flex between blending open and closed by covering the consonant in the final position. And so it just kind of tells us exactly at least what we're supposed to be utilizing. And it tells us the resources in this part of the blending drills. And this is only 3 minutes, okay? So as our scholars get used to this, they're gonna flow between each section. Then our next section is fluency. And so the main thing that we need to know about fluency is it requires us to utilize really the gradual release of responsibility. And so the first phase, we'll notice that we, as a teacher, we model. And then as a class, we practice together. Then as a teacher, we model again. And then the scholars partner practice. And then they practice together as a group. So then the scholars practice, then we practice together as a group again. And after that, if we choose to give them the text for practice at home or outside of the classroom, that's a powerful thing, because sometimes our scholars only have confidence when we're in close proximity or when they're in the classroom with us and their peers. And so it's up to you, but it's okay to give them a passage that they could try on their own outside of the day-to-day normal learning environment. So this is the flow. Again, repetition, and Phonics and Pinel is big on doing things 3 times. So you'll notice almost everything is done in 3s. The teacher reads the passage, models fluent reading, the class core reads the text. Teacher asks questions about the meaning of the text. We always want to make sure they have context. And then the scholars partner read the text. And then the class core reads the text. And then there's an opportunity again for our scholars to read the text if we want to give them that prompt. And so this is fluency. It's just in 3s. It happens over the course of 3 different times. On this part of the lesson plan, this will take 10 minutes for the fluency section. And again, it's very scripted. It tells you exactly what to do, what you're reading, what page number, etc. All right, so now I'm going to go to the next phase. Our 4th section of our lesson plan is the auditory drills. Now, this is an example of an S. Okay, take 2. Thumbs up if you can hear me and see me. I don't know what happened. I guess my computer decided to take a vacation for a second, or a mini break. Okay, thank you all for your patience. All right, so our next section of the lesson plan is the auditory drills. And so this is where, for example, our scholars are in a position, these drills are just write what you hear. All right, so write what you hear. So the teacher says a letter, a sound, or a keyword out loud, and our scholars will say the letter, sound, or keyword. and then they will write it on their student response sheet. That's the SRS. So when you hear that SRS, it's the student response sheet. So this is the thing that requires us to print out these sheets every single day. Now, most schools have been very creative, and some schools have chosen to laminate them. Other schools have chosen to get a class set of binders, and they just put them in sheet protectors so scholars can write on the sheet protectors with a marker, a dry erase marker, and then they just erase them. And that way you are cutting down on cost. So if you have any other creative ideas that you would suggest, go ahead and put them in the chat area. What are you doing when it comes to the student response sheets that pretty much are a daily requirement for our scholars to get this practice? You'll notice on the student response sheet, so feel free to use the chat area to do that if you have any great ideas besides laminating, putting them in sheet protectors. Other schools are choosing to get the dry erase boards with the sentence lines on them. So, because we know our younger scholars, they need those sentence lines. So there are dry erase boards you can buy that have those. And using this pretty much is our check for understanding. But because this is a kindergarten student response sheet, you'll notice there are no numbers because they're learning their numbers. So they start out with shapes. And so this is just meant for scholars. This is where we can catch a lot. Are they actually processing what they hear? And this tells us a lot about their processing abilities. And so we have to pay close attention to which scholars and how they're processing, because we can catch a lot of challenges or deeper rooted things during our auditory drills. Okay. All right. And we do that through our student response sheets. So just want to put that out there, that the auditory exercises are powerful with monitoring who's processing what and how. Our next section of our lesson plan, we're going to get a chance to practice a couple of strategies on this one. Our memory words. So for our memory words, that pretty much equals the words that we're going to spell, right? And so memory words are also called, some of our teachers call them, they also are sight words. And so the way that Orton-Gillingham expects us to approach this is, as a teacher, we're going to introduce the new word to the scholars, including the meaning, and because we always want to give them that context. And then our scholars will skywrite the word while they say the letters. And this happens in threes. Everything happens in threes. And so for example, if the word was the, and we asked them to skywrite it, bending the wrist, and I don't know if you can see me on camera, bending the wrist is what OG would consider a non-example. You're like, what? Why is it a non-example? Because of the neuroscience. We want our scholars making cross-lateral movements. We want them to use when we look at their eye view, we want them going above and below that mid-range of their eye view. It is neurological. It is based on neuroscience. And so that's why skywriting is highly encouraged. And so skywriting scholars are expected to extend their arms completely. And it's the non-dominant hand. Why, Charmaine? Why the non-dominant hand? Because we're going to be asking them to write. So we want them, if I'm right-handed, I need my right hand available to write, skywrite with one, and I can write with the other. Because how many of our PLA scholars, again, we know a lot of them deal with a lot of toxic stress. Toxic stress impacts their short-term memory. For some of our scholars, even spelling a three-letter word, the, if you wait and ask them to write the at the very end of that cycle, some of them won't even be able to recall. So skywriting, fully extended hand, if it's the, they say it, right? They're going to see it on the board, right? And then they spell that letter T. And for some of our scholars who, again, their short-term memory, it's challenged. They're not going to remember. Right after that first letter, I can write that down. And then I can go and I can spell the H, and then I can write that down. It is up to you. If you feel like you need to chunk those three-letter words because your scholars, the recall is not going to be there after three letters, then you do that. You have them have a writing utensil, they spell that letter, they write it. This happens in a cycle of three. They look at it the first time and they're spelling, right? The second cycle, they have to turn and face a different wall where they are not looking at the word now. So now they don't have that visual cue. They're not just recycling what they see. Now it's a deeper, a next step into their memory and building that up, and they skywrite. And then the third cycle, maybe if you chunk it by letter, by the third cycle, maybe you're going to ask them to spell all 3 letters. And then now let's see if they can write it again with all 3. But for some of our scholars, we have to scaffold that and build up to that. So scholars will have their student response sheet, they skywrite the letter, and it's a cycle of 3. They see it the first time, they look to a different wall, they skywrite it, they look to a different direction, and they skywrite it again. And they literally write it down 3 times. So that's an example of our skywriting. And it is a strategy and a strong suggestion for Orton-Gillingham. So just wanna, I know that bending the wrist, that's something that we see a lot, but the skywriting, remember that extension is powerful because it helps the brain cross lateral movements as well as the up and down above the mid eye level range for our scholars to see, okay? And again, add some strategies. You are gurus. You guys have been doing this a lot longer than me. So please add any strategy, suggestions, research that that you've come and that you've seen to work. Another strategy is tapping. If you have the resident DJ being those scholars who, I mean, they're constantly banging on the desk. They hear music. You don't hear the music, but they hear it. These are musical rhythmic scholars. They need to tap. They need to, they need to. And so this tapping strategy is the same thing. You extend your hand with a non-dominant, you extend the non-dominant hand because you free up the dominant hand to write, whatever that is, right? And so if the word was, ooh, yes, the SSS, say it, clap it, say it again. So wonderful strategy. All right, this one they're saying, you say the word, right? So let's say if it's, I don't know, it would be, and then you blend it. So it would be tap, 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 blend. So they say it, all right? And this is just like the clap it, but you're tapping the arm. You say it again, but as you say it again, as you're blending it on the arm. For some of our scholars, this is a powerful thing, right? Tap, say it, and then you blend it and say it again. It's something about smoothing it out where they learn that that's a blending process for them. I've seen some teachers who they have scholars jump, and they go jump, 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 and then they slide. And that represents the blend, okay? So I don't know if they're going to sleep and or if they're, that's another way too to have them jump. Other teachers have said they've used, they pretend like they're dribbling a basketball, especially if you have a lot of our male scholars or female scholars who love sports, all right? So pretend like they're dribbling a basketball, the clapping, I've heard that as well. So any other strategies, go ahead and put those in the chat area for how you could help our scholars with these memory words, which aren't as easy. And just remember, it's an old movie. I know I'm dating myself, but back in the day, there was this movie called Akilah and the Bee. It's probably 20 years old now. But Akilah and the Bee, and it was about a little girl and a spelling bee, and her tutor would have her jump rope because she needed that multisensory movement, or she would have to tap her leg while she was spelling words. It was just something about that for her that helped with that memory recall. It matters, it works. All right. And then the next, I hope we're writing down some strategies, especially depending on where you were on that scale. Another strategy for writing is having our scholars trace the words. So they're going to receive the student response sheet. We're going to have a strategy to make sure we have those response sheets every day. But another multisensory approach is using those grid screens. We have our student response sheet. We place the grid under that sheet, and then our scholars are pressing down as they write. It's something about that texture that stamps it in their brain. And they do this 3 times. Everything is 3 times. So you'll notice on the student response sheet, why do they have to spell the same thing 3 times? It's intentional. All right. And so that's a part of that neuroscience that Orton-Gillingham includes. And so these are just some strategies. We got the tapping, right? Or the SSS strategy, right? Or we have the skywriting, and then we have our student response sheets to really stamp that learning of those memory words for our scholars. And on our lesson plan, the memory words is it's 3 minutes. So they give us tons of ways that we can get this done. Okay. So sure. You mean the recording of, you have to clarify for me, either the training, just, yes. Okay,
Yeah,
awesome.
I was thinking of this seminar would be great. So if I can, or we can go back and, look at some of the stuff, that'd be great. If you got a copy of it. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Okay.
I will write that down for my homework. Thank you for putting
All
that
right.
in the chat area.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, so please put in the chat area. And thank you, Miss JC from first grade. What is your favorite suggestion or strategy mentioned to teach memory words and why? All right, go ahead and use the chat area right now. Let's talk about what we're thinking about or what you have already used, but maybe you're going to add a more multi-sensory approach to. So maybe like, Charmaine, this is already in my toolkit. I know it works. I'm just going to add a layer of multi-sensory. I'm going to add this step. Songs, woo, music, our PLA scholars, music helps. Music helps. Even when the choral read is a rhythm, there's a tempo, there's a pacing, right? It's musical. So really use music to your advantage. Music is powerful. Our scholars will come in and they will know all the lyrics to a song because of the rhythm, the tempo, the patterns, right? All right, jumping. All right, wonderful for that physical movement. All right, wonderful, wonderful. All right. So yeah, let's, all right, so if you have any other strategies that you think you're gonna implement or add, definitely add them to the chat area. Dictation, okay, and I know this is kindergarten. We already talked about them being challenged. They don't know their numbers quite yet, right? But when you look at the dictation piece, they do have the numbers here, but I do wanna point out with dictation, all it is about them, again, us being able to understand how our scholars are accessing their, how to assess their knowledge of a new sound or a skill. So again, they hear us say something and then they're recording what they hear, either the words or a complete sentence. And so with this being said, our scholars listen to both the words and the sentence. They have to process it and then they write it using the new phonics skills. So this is about them learning new skills, right? And so with this is just a kindergarten example of a dictation form. You see these little, you see the triangle and you see the square. Triangle represents the mountain. The square represents some type of punctuation. So this is just reminding them that at the beginning of a sentence, usually, we're expected to capitalize that first letter. And then at the end of a sentence, there should be some type of punctuation there. So this is just a visual reminder for our scholars of those things. Other things that are going to come up during dictation include the following. Intentional teaching them blends, digraphs that are going to guide our scholars. And so what's a blend, what's, the digraphs and things like that. These are all things that are going to help our scholars when it comes to, so digraphs are taught as a new sound, right? So that tells scholars that it's not just a and right, it's sh. So same thing with the CL, right? It teaches them that this is a blend and so we have to be explicit with teaching these things. Other things that have to be, that can be a great quick drill for them is vowel sound tense. So getting paper, having an A, E, I, O, and a U there, and seeing how well they're able to recall when they hear a word from us. We're going to say a word. Our scholars are going to find the vowel tent that depicts the correct letter that makes that vowel sound. So sometimes just doing vowel sound drills with them will help them to see how they're identifying what they're hearing. These are powerful. And so the students will say the word, and then they'll be able to identify the vowel. And they'll say the A says, and or the E says, you know, and then they'll be able to identify the vowel. Now here you see an image of them all being in different colors. I warn you about the colors because when you use that, some scholars are very, I mean, if everybody's holding up green and I went to go grab my yellow one, I'm probably going to put my yellow one down and grab the green. So we want to make sure that when you do these drills, you have a way of, if they're on the desk, you just have them put their hands in front of the tent card, or you have them put the tent card in front of their chest. But if they're all in a group, sometimes they can just start to, so I used to like when the tent card to be were all the same color, but it's up to you. I know it's easier when they're different colors. Another suggestion for writing to help our scholars with writing includes finger tapping. And so you'll see these two cards here. I know it says right hand and left hand. It looks like there's something wrong with that, but they're actually intentional. And I'm just going to show you what this looked like. For example, it's going to be demonstrated if you're teaching the word cat, for example. You pound cat, and then they finger tap on the desk from left to right always, because in the English language, we write from left to right, right? Right? And so they sound it out, and that's going to help them when it comes to having to write it. And so I'm just going to show you what this look like, what this can possibly look like in this demonstration.
So I'm right-handed, and if I wanted to write a word, I would put my hand on here, and I would say the word that I wanted to sound out. And let's say it's that same word that we just read, cat. So you pound that one syllable, cat. K, a, t, cat. So as the children go back, they can have they're connecting their brain and their hands. They're making this a kinetic activity. The more kinetic that you can make this, the muscle memory that you create, the more retention you'll have for the children in their writing. So I'm going to demonstrate that again. Pound that syllable. This is a one syllable word, cat. K, a, t, cat. K, k. Well, we know that k can be C or K. K. A, a, a. That's our vowel A. T, t, cat. So that's how it would be demonstrated with the right-handed person. So I'm going to then do.
All right, so I'll pause it there. And so pretty much that, you know, that's the reason why it's, again, the non-dominant hand does the pound, it does the tapping, right? And then so that they still have their dominant hand that's available to do the writing, which is very important for our scholars, again, with that quick, fast memory recall. Dictation only is 3 minutes on the lesson plan for the kindergarten lesson. And again, are there any other tips or strategies from our experts that you found to be helpful when it comes to helping our scholars with the writing component? And if so, you can come on mic, or you can feel free to put it in the chat area. But if you have any other strategies, again, or you're doing a strategy, but you're going to add a layer to it, a multisensory layer, then please feel free to share that as well. Anyone want to come on mic? You have any ideas? Okay, I'll let you guys marinate on it. If a strategy does come up, feel free to share it with us or to think it through, definitely with your colleagues. All right, awesome. Ms. Stephanie says dictations are great for teaching listening skills, to ELs, and to help assess what auditory sounds they are missing. Absolutely, we have to pay close attention during this time. This tells us what they're processing. If they are missing key things that they literally can't hear. And again, we have to be careful where we're positioned in the room to make sure for some of them, they can see our lips. So if they can, I didn't realize how much I relied on people's lips to comprehend what they were saying until COVID hit. And then all the masks were here. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have no idea what this person is saying. And I know I understand language, you know, the language they're speaking, but we rely, for some of us, we really rely, and I struggle with reading. I was the kid in your small group. And so I rely a lot on mouth, the movements and the positions of people's mouths. So be mindful of that too, when you're, you know, when you're saying the words. Some of your scholars are watching you like a hawk because they need your lips. They need to see them, okay? All right, the last piece of OG training, and get out a piece of paper because we will all practice this, syllable types, all right? And put in the chat area if you have explicitly taught syllable types, taught your scholars to break down syllables. All right, yes, okay, all right. All right, if that's you, put yes in the chat area, but this can be a change for some of us when it comes to phonics. So OG is big on, please teach the syllable types. Here they are. We're going to go through them, and this is also in your toolkit. The open syllable. All right, awesome. See, all right, that helped me out when you guys said that there was a lot of 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s on up to 10s in this group. But if you are new to teaching phonics in general, right, and new to Orton-Gillingham phonics, they are very specific on the wanting you to teach these syllable types. And so we're going to go through them pretty quickly, and then we're going to practice how our scholars are going to break them down. So open syllable type includes, it contains one vowel. The first thing our scholars are asked to do when they have a word is to identify the vowels in that word, which is why our vowel drills are important as well, right? If the syllable ends with a vowel, then the vowel says its name. And so this is what we explicitly teach our scholars. So HE, all right, if we see this, and this is, our scholars will learn that, this is a syllable, it's open because the vowel, it ends with a vowel. And so that vowel is gonna say its name. So that's how we get he. We have that Y there, right? And we know that Y sometimes sounds like an I. And so in this situation, it's shy, all right? Whoa, all right, plu, T, that kind of thing. So we are explicit with this. This is considered an open syllable. A closed syllable is where we typically have one vowel and that it ends with a consonant. So the vowel either ends with a consonant, sometimes it's sandwiched between two consonants. But the biggest thing we know it's closed if there's a vowel and behind that vowel there is a consonant, we know it's closed. Okay. Then the vowel says its short name. So we're explicitly teaching our scholars this. And so it wouldn't be sub, it would be sub, right? It wouldn't be it, it would be it. And so this is supposed to help our scholars with really having these tricks to know what our vowels are doing, what their role is in this process. The next one is the magic E. We heard in the video what our scholars recognize. This is when you have two different vowels and one vowel is followed by a consonant. So you have a vowel, a consonant, and a vowel. But whenever that last vowel is an E, that's typically our silent E, our magic E, okay? So Orton-Gillingham, they call it the magic E. And it pretty much makes the vowel say its name. And so it's not Mackie, but it's make. Because if our scholars know that E is silent, then they know that's just one syllable. They would never say Mackie. Right? They'll say make. And so very powerful for them there. And then we have our R controlled syllable. And so you have one vowel followed by an R, and then the R controls the vowel and make it say a completely different sound. So it's and so they have to know that R's, they're in control. And they kind of tell the vowel what to do, right? So it just pretty much the R control syllable. And so we want to be explicit with when this comes up, reminding our scholars of that. You have a vowel and you have that R, it makes a different sound. And so, and then our last one, our second to the last one is our vowel teams. So with vowel teams, this is where two or more letters that make one vowel sound. And so it's not always two vowels, but it's two letters that make one vowel sound. So you have N-E-E-D, that happens to be two vowels, but it makes one sound. We have P-L-A-Y, the A-Y there kind of follows that rule, you got two letters, but they make one sound, the A and the Y. So they wouldn't go ah, yeah, right? That A and that Y is going to make one sound, and that's a vowel team. And so we're explicit with teaching our scholars that. And our last rule is the consonant plus the LE. Whenever there's an LE, a consonant plus an LE, our scholars will learn that this is a syllable type. And so it pretty much, it's going to change the sound as well. So they wouldn't try to break this word down and split up the consonant and the LE. So we don't want them trying to draw a line between the BL and the E. All right, so they know that that's one syllable, one complete chunk. So now we're going to practice. Get ready, get ready. So the way you're like, Charmaine, how do we teach this to our scholars? Really? Okay, so let's practice it together. You were thinking it, I was thinking it too. Okay, so we're going to practice it together. All right, so let's say we have the word bandit, and I know this is a big word, but first thing you're going to do is I want you to identify the vowels. So that's always the first step we're going to be able to support our scholars. All right, so someone give me the two vowels. What are our vowels in this word? All right, the A and the I, absolutely. All right, you can use the chat area. All right, so our scholars, they have the word, they identify the vowels. That's what we need them to do, right? And then we want them to kind of remember, okay, so we have vowels, and I want you to split this word up based on the vowels. So we know that A is followed by an N, right? We know the I is followed by the T. So right now, most likely, where would our scholars split this up? Because we have a B, we have an A, and then we have an N. So our scholars would naturally first try to split this word up because our vowel has a consonant. So they would put the line where. So on your paper, I want you to put where you would split that vowel. Now I know it's hard because we know this word. So for us, it seems like it makes more sense. But if we're intentional, we're teaching them the open and the close syllable right here. Exactly. They would start to look and start to think, they would split it between that N and that D. Absolutely. And so when they split it here, they would know when they read this word, bandit, they would know intentionally how to split it and how to separate it as they're reading. Bandit, right? And so they would know that ban is considered, that part of the word is closed syllable, and dit is a closed syllable as well.
I just have a quick question. When we're teaching this, is that with the assumption that the kids already do, like the scholars already do know what a syllable is? I mean, not a syllable, I'm sorry, what a vowel is, right?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Because that's the first thing they have to do. They have to identify all the vowels. So this is, we get into the syllables and how to help them. Yes, once they have identified the vowels, they're aware of how a word is formed and the parts that make up a word. So absolutely. So you guys would let me know, you guys would know which grade level this is probably gonna wind up coming up in. All right, so plain. Now, you're gonna say plain. So if they hear the word, that's gonna help them as well. But the first thing they do is they identify the vowels. All right, and so you guys identify the vowels. So that's the first thing we have them do. Always good. There's the A and there's the E. Absolutely. What am I clicking on? All right, so the A and the E, they're the vowels. And so this is where they will intentionally know what happened here. We have an A and we have an E. And so they're gonna want to either try to put the line between the A and the N and the N and the E. But if they remember the rule, when you have two vowels, right? And you have an A and you have a consonant followed by the E, then guess what? If they learn that, that's gonna be the magic E. And so when we're intentional in teaching them about the magic E, whenever there's a word that ends in an E, all right? And so in this situation, we have a magic E situation. So they're gonna know that the magic E says nothing, it's silent. So now they know that that can't be a separate syllable, and they know that this word is just one syllable. And so This is a magic E situation. So they know this word is plain. They know it's only one syllable. They would never pronounce it plainy. They would never pronounce it that way because they know it's a magic E situation. They would go plain. All right, I'm gonna go over another one, and I know we're wrapping up. Beach. All right, can anyone recognize what syllable rule this would follow under? Now we know it's intentional. Would our scholars know it's intentional? Probably not, right? We still have to take them through the steps. Absolutely the vowel teams, right? Because we know that this, if they hear it out loud, we say the word, they'll hear the word and they're like, well, I think I'm only hearing one syllable, right? But when I follow what my teacher is asking me to do, I'm going to identify the two vowels, the E and the A, absolutely, right? And but I only heard beach. My teacher said beach. So it seemed that only made one sound, right? And so with that being said, they're not going to try to split these two things up, because they would know it falls under the vowel sound. And then here there's an opportunity for them to understand with the CH, it's not k, right? It's so helping them with that as well. And so this is a vowel team situation. And because of that, this is only one syllable word. They wouldn't try to split this up. So just being explicit with this process. And so really this is the last phase in Orton-Gillingham and wanting to make sure we're explicit with these things. Insect, same thing. Our scholars would identify the vowels. Here we have a situation where they would put the line in there because we have a closed and we have a closed situation. A closed syllable and another closed syllable. Insect, they would know this word has two syllables. So if they never heard the word and they just had to determine how many syllables, that's the biggest thing. What if a scholar has never heard this word? They are reading out loud. And when it comes to them learning how to really understand how to say this word, that's where these skills show up. All right, and our last one, I'll just show you, subtract. All right, we'll see where the digraphs come into play, right? They identify the vowels. Some of our scholars will probably split it up like this. But then as we're teaching them that TR, right, and that CT, right? And so that's why all of this comes to life when they're reading. And so here we have two closed syllables. All right, and so really this concludes our session today. I'm going to go ahead and put the toolkit in the post-training survey in the chat area. So you have your certificate. If you complete, you get the certificate, it's emailed to you. So make sure you put the right email in the survey and type your name there and your toolkit. You are going to receive, it's just moving a little slow, but your toolkit looks like this. And it's just a PDF of those links. Click on those links and it'll take you to the resources. Again, I appreciate your time today. And yes, if you have any questions, I'll stay on. And again, my name is Charmaine Jennings. You can always email me if there's something you need that I can support you with at your school.